Everyone wants to know when things are about to get better. When you're struggling, when you've been working on yourself, when you've been through hard times, you want some sign that it wasn't all for nothing, that you're actually heading somewhere good. But Carl Jung discovered something interesting. The signs that you're about to enter the best stage of your life don't look the way you'd expect. They're not about suddenly feeling amazing or having everything fall into place. They're quieter than that, more subtle. And they often show up at the end of the hardest periods, not during the easy times. Most people miss these signs completely because they're looking for obvious improvements when the real indicators are internal shifts that don't look impressive from the outside. Jung spent his life studying how people develop and transform over time. And he noticed clear patterns in people who were about to break through into a completely different level of living. These weren't people who'd suddenly gotten lucky or had their circumstances magically improve. These were people who'd done deep internal work, sometimes without even realizing it, and were now on the edge of something really good. But the signs that they were ready weren't what anyone expected. They weren't happy or excited or optimistic. They were just different. Changed in ways that indicated the foundation had shifted enough that everything built on top of that foundation was about to change, too. Today, I'm going to show you the 7 specific signs Jung identified that you're about to begin the best stage of your life. Why each one indicates that real transformation has already happened internally. Music, and what to do when you recognize these signs in yourself. Because if you're experiencing these things right now, Jung would tell you to pay attention. You might not feel like you're on the verge of something good. You might feel tired or empty or just different than you used to be. But these signs mean the hard work is done. Music, and you're about to see what it was all for. Before we get into the 7 signs, let's talk about what Jung meant by the best stage of your life. He wasn't talking about everything being perfect or easy. He wasn't talking about having no problems or always being happy. He was talking about a stage where you're finally living as yourself instead of as who you thought you should be. Where your internal and external lives match. Where you're not fighting against yourself anymore. Where you have peace even when things are hard. Where you're free in ways you've never been free before. That's what the best stage means. Not perfect circumstances, but authentic living. And that only comes after you've done the work of becoming who you actually are underneath all the programming and expectations and fear. The first sign that you're about to begin the best stage of your life is that you can let go of things and people without bitterness. This is huge. For most of your life, when you lost something or someone, it probably hurt in a way that left you angry or resentful. You felt betrayed or cheated or like you've been treated unfairly. And you carried that bitterness around, sometimes for years. It colored how you saw new situations. It made you protective and guarded. You couldn't fully let go because letting go felt like they won or like you were admitting defeat. But then something shifts. You start to be able to release things without that heavy feeling. A relationship ends and you're sad, but you're not bitter. You lose an opportunity and you're disappointed, but you're not angry. Someone treats you badly and you just walk away without needing to punish them or prove they were wrong. You can see that things ran their course or that people did their best even if it wasn't good enough or that something just wasn't meant for you and you can let it go. Jung saw this as one of the clearest signs that you'd done real internal work because bitterness comes from feeling like life owes you something. Like you should have gotten what you wanted, like it's not fair that things didn't work out. But when you've matured psychologically, you stop expecting life to be fair. You stop believing you're owed certain outcomes. You understand that sometimes things don't work and that's just how it is. And that understanding lets you release without the anger. You're not being passive or defeated. You're just no longer fighting reality. And that ability to let go cleanly is what clears space for the new good things to come in. The second sign is that you stop caring what most people think about your choices. Not in an aggressive way. You're not trying to prove you don't care. You just genuinely don't need their approval anymore. For most of your life, you probably made decisions based partly on how they'd look to other people. What would your family think? What would your friends say? How would it seem to others? And that concern shaped your choices in ways you might not have even noticed. You stayed in situations because leaving would be judged. You didn't try things because others might think they were stupid. You kept yourself inside certain boundaries because stepping outside them would make you look bad. But then you reach a point where you're making decisions based on what's actually right for you. Music. and other people's opinions just don't factor in the same way. They can think whatever they want. You're doing what you need to do, and you're not being defensive about it or explaining yourself excessively. You're just clear on what's yours to decide, and you're making those decisions from your own center instead of from trying to manage how others see you. Jung understood this as individuation, becoming your own person separate from the collective. And it's a sign you're about to enter the best stage because you can't really thrive while you're still performing for others. As long as you need their approval, you're constrained by what they find acceptable. But once you've released that need, you're free to build a life that actually fits you. And that freedom is what allows the best stage to unfold, because now you're finally available to discover and live what's actually true for you instead of what looks good to others. The third sign is that you're comfortable being alone in a way you've never been before. Not lonely, comfortable. For most of your life, being alone probably felt bad. Felt like something was missing. You needed people around or plans to look forward to, or at least the distraction of being busy so you didn't have to sit with yourself. Alone time was something to get through until you could be with people again. But then something changes. You start to actually like being alone. You look forward to time by yourself. You're not using it to recover from people so you can go back out. You're genuinely content in your own company. You can sit with yourself without needing to fill the space with noise or activity or other people. And it's not that you don't want connection anymore. You do. But you don't need it to avoid yourself. You like yourself enough now that being alone is pleasant instead of painful. Jung saw this as evidence that you'd integrated yourself enough to not need external validation constantly. When you can't be alone comfortably, it usually means you're running from something in yourself. Feelings you don't want to feel, thoughts you don't want to think, a fundamental discomfort with who you are. But when you've done the work to face those things and integrate them, being alone stops feeling like punishment. And this is a sign you're ready for the best stage, because you're now approaching relationships from wholeness rather than from need. You're not looking for someone to complete you or to distract you from yourself. You're looking for genuine connection as someone who's already complete. And that creates completely different relationship dynamics, much healthier ones. The fourth sign is that your past suddenly makes sense in a way it never did before. You look back on your life, and instead of just seeing random events that happened to you, you see a pattern. You see how everything that happened, even the painful stuff, especially the painful stuff, was leading you to where you are now. That relationship that destroyed you taught you what you actually need. That job you hated showed you what you value. That loss forced you to develop strength you didn't know you had. It's not that you're grateful for trauma or pretending bad things were good. It's that you can see how they shaped you in ways that turned out to matter. This is different from just making peace with the past. It's actually seeing the pattern, understanding, not just accepting. You're connecting dots you couldn't see while you were living through it. And this new perspective gives you this sense of, oh, I was always heading here. I just couldn't see it yet. All those times I thought I was lost. I was actually on the path. I just couldn't see where it was going. Jung called this finding meaning in your story. And it's a sign you're ready for the best stage, because you're no longer a victim of your past. You're not carrying it like a burden or using it as an excuse. You've integrated it as part of your development. Music. And that integration frees up enormous energy that was previously locked in resenting or avoiding your history. Now you can use that energy to build forward, because you're not fighting with where you came from anymore. Before we continue, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, Music with 24 practical reflection exercises inspired by the teachings of Carl Jung, designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get true self-discovery. The fifth sign is that you feel empty in a way that's peaceful instead of painful. This one confuses people because emptiness sounds like a bad thing. And for most of your life, feeling empty probably was bad. It felt like something was missing, like you weren't enough, like you needed to fill yourself with something. Achievement, relationships, distractions, substances, whatever worked. The emptiness was this anxious, uncomfortable void that you had to escape. But there's a different kind of emptiness that shows up after you've done deep work. It's more like spaciousness. You're not full of anxiety or ambition or need in the way you used to be. There's this quiet internal space that used to feel like lack, but now feels like possibility. You're not frantically trying to fill it anymore. You're just in it. Music. And it's okay. It's actually kind of nice. You have room to breathe, room to see clearly, room for new things to come in without having to force them. Jung understood this as psychological clearing. You've released so much of what was filling you up. Other people's expectations, false beliefs about who you should be, old pain you were carrying, patterns that weren't serving you. And now there's space. And instead of panicking about that space, you're recognizing it as readiness. You're empty the way a house is empty before you move in new furniture. The emptiness is preparation for what comes next, not a sign that something's wrong. This is a sign you're entering the best stage because you're no longer operating from desperation to fill yourself. You're not chasing things to prove you're enough or to distract yourself from not being enough. You're just here in this spacious place available for whatever is actually meant for you instead of grabbing at whatever you think will make you feel full. The sixth sign is that you've stopped forcing things. For most of your life, you probably had this relationship with life where you were constantly pushing for things to happen, pushing people to be different, pushing yourself to achieve or change or improve. And some of that pushing was productive. It got you places. It made things happen. But a lot of it was just exhausting. You were trying to control outcomes that weren't fully in your control. You were trying to make things work that weren't meant to work. You were forcing. And the forcing created constant tension. But then you hit this point where you stop. Not because you've given up. That's different. You've just learned the difference between effort and force. You still work hard. You still try. But you're not white-knuckling your way through life anymore. If something's flowing, you go with it. If it's not, you pause and reconsider instead of pushing harder. You let relationships be what they're going to be instead of trying to control them into being what you want. You pursue goals, but you're also willing to notice when a path isn't working and choose differently. You've developed this ability to work hard while also staying loose. Jung saw this as wisdom about how life actually works. You can't force most things. You can prepare yourself. You can show up. You can do your part. But then you have to let things unfold according to their own nature. And when you finally learn this and start living it, everything gets easier. Not because life gets easier, but because you're not adding all that extra suffering of fighting against reality. And this is a sign the best stage is coming because you're finally in the right relationship with effort. You're neither passive nor controlling. You're engaged but not attached. And that's the stance from which good things can actually develop. The seventh sign is that you have this quiet confidence that's not based on anything external. This is different from the confidence you might have felt earlier in life that was based on achievements or appearance or what people thought of you. That kind of confidence was fragile. If circumstances changed, it disappeared. This new confidence is quieter and much more solid. It's not about believing you're the best or that you'll succeed at everything. It's more like a deep trust that you can handle whatever comes, that you'll figure it out, that you're fundamentally okay regardless of what happens. You don't need to prove this confidence to anyone. You're not talking about how confident you are or trying to convince yourself. It's just this settled feeling underneath everything else. Things can be hard and you still have it. Things can go wrong and it doesn't shake because it's not confidence in your circumstances. It's confidence in yourself, in your ability to cope, to adapt, to survive, to grow. You've been through enough now that you know you can handle things. And that knowing is quiet but unshakable. Jung understood this as the result of having faced and survived hard things. You've tested yourself and you didn't break. You've been through versions of worst-case scenario and you're still here. So you're not as afraid anymore. Not because nothing bad will happen, but because you know you can handle it if it does. And this confidence is a sign you're ready for the best stage because you're no longer living defensively. You're not protecting yourself from life. You're available to fully engage with life because you trust yourself to handle whatever engagement brings. So those are the 7 signs. Letting go without bitterness. Not needing others' approval. Being comfortable alone. Your past making sense. Peaceful emptiness. Stopping the forcing. And quiet, unshakable confidence. And if you're experiencing several of these, you're probably right on the edge of something really good, even if you don't feel like it yet. Here's what Jung would want you to understand. These signs don't look like what people expect. People think the signs would be feeling great, having everything work out, being excited about the future. But these signs are subtler and more internal. They're about who you've become, not about what's happening around you. Music, and they indicate that the foundation has shifted. You've changed at a level deep enough that your whole life is about to reorganize around the new you. And that reorganization is what creates the best stage. Not because everything suddenly gets easy, though some things might get easier, but because you're finally living from your center instead of from your fear or your need for approval or your desperation to prove something. You're making choices from clarity instead of from anxiety. You're building from truth instead of from what you think should be. And when you're operating from that place, even when things are hard, there's a rightness to it,